I've always believed birthdays were supposed to be days filled with love, laughter, and the comfort of knowing that, at least for one day, you are celebrated. But in my house, birthdays felt more like a stage, a cruel performance where I played the fool while others enjoyed the show. My name is Lena, and I grew up in a family where love was rationed like water in a drought. My father Henry was distant and cold, forever buried in work, while my mother, Clara, was a woman whose love seemed to sour into envy the older I became. And then there was my younger sister, Ivy, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. From the outside, we might have looked like a respectable middle-class family. Brick house, trimmed lawn, dinners at the table. But beneath that picture-perfect surface lurked tension that thickened with each passing year, like smoke filling a room. I was the firstborn, the experimental child, as I liked to call it. My mother often reminded me that I had been a difficult baby. Apparently, I cried too much, ate too little, and ruined her figure. She said these things with a laugh, but the sharpness in her eyes always gave her away. Ivy, on the other hand, was born glowing, or at least that's how my mother described it. She had big green eyes, golden hair, and a smile that melted people on the spot. "She's our little miracle," Mom would say, brushing Ivy's hair lovingly while side-eyeing me, as if I were the opposite. Dad didn't play favorites outright, but his silence was damning enough. He never defended me when Mom cut me down, never stepped in when Ivy mocked me. He simply observed, detached, as though I were someone else's child and not his responsibility. By the time I was 17, I had grown used to being the invisible one, the scapegoat, the punching bag, the joke. The story I'm about to tell you happened on my 18th birthday, the day I thought I'd finally be free. The day adulthood would somehow shift the scales in my favor. I had fantasized about it for years. Turning 18, moving out. Creating a life where my worth wasn't measured by how much more radiant Ivy was. I didn't expect miracles, but I hoped for a simple day. Maybe a cake, few kind words, perhaps even a hug from my parents that didn't feel like an obligation. But I should have known better. I woke up to the faint smell of baking. For a moment, my heart lifted. Was Mom making me a cake? I padded downstairs in my slippers, still groggy but hopeful. In the kitchen, I found her at the counter, mixing batter in a glass bowl. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, catching the flour dust in the air. "Morning," I said softly, trying not to disturb her. She glanced up, her lips curling into something that might have been a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Morning, Lena. Happy birthday." My chest warmed slightly. "Thanks, Mom." "Is that for me?" She tilted her head. "Of course. What kind of mother doesn't bake her daughter a cake on her 18th? The way she said it, light, airy, almost mocking, made my stomach twist. But I shoved the feeling down. For once, I wanted to believe her. Ivy skipped into the kitchen moments later, her perfect hair bouncing like she'd stepped out of a commercial. "Oh, cake." "For me?" she teased, hugging Mom from behind. "No, sweetie," Mom said, patting her arm. "This one's for your sister. But don't worry, yours will be even better in a few weeks." They both laughed, and I stood there feeling like an intruder in my own birthday celebration. The day was supposed to be small, just family and a few close friends. At least that's what I'd been told. But by noon, I noticed Mom had gone overboard. Dozens of balloons, catering order, and far more chairs than we had relatives to fill. Mom, isn't this a bit much?" I asked, watching delivery men bring in trays of food. She smirked. "You only turn 18 once. Besides, we've invited some special people." "Special people." "You'll see." Something about the way she said it made me uneasy, but before I could press, Ivy tugged me upstairs to help her pick out an outfit. Not for me, of course, but for her. By late afternoon, our house looked like it was hosting a gala. Relatives I hadn't seen in years showed up. Neighbors wandered in. And even Dad's business partners arrived with their wives in tow. I felt like the guest of honor at someone else's party. I tried to shake off the feeling. I told myself, "Lena, stop being paranoid. It's your birthday. Smile, be grateful." But the whispers started early. "She's not as pretty as Ivy, is she?" one aunt murmured when she thought I couldn't hear. Clara always said Lena was the difficult one, another chimed in. Their words slithered into my ears, confirming every insecurity I'd carried for years. I caught Dad standing by the punch bowl, talking business with his associates, barely acknowledging me. Ivy floated around in a pastel dress, charming everyone effortlessly. And Mom? She looked like the queen of the evening, orchestrating the event with pride, though every glance she threw me was laced with something darker. By the time the sun dipped low, everyone had gathered in the dining room. The lights dimmed and Mom appeared with a cake. It was beautiful. 3 layers, frosted in white with delicate pink roses piped along the edges. For a moment, I felt special. Everyone sang happy birthday, their voices rising in a chorus that should have made me feel loved. But instead, it felt staged, hollow. Still, I closed my eyes, made a wish, and blew out the candles. As the knife cut through the cake, I noticed Mom's eyes glinting strangely. She handed me the first slice herself, her smile too wide, too forced. I didn't know it then, but that slice held more than sugar and flour. I remember lifting the fork, the taste of sweet frosting hitting my tongue. The way everyone watched me as if waiting for something. At the time, I thought it was just birthday nerves, the pressure of being in the spotlight for once. But deep down, a part of me sensed it. Something was wrong. That cake was not a gift. It was a weapon. And my own mother had baked it for me. I balanced the plate in my hand like it was something fragile. I'd been trusted with for the first time. The first bite tasted like childhood vanilla butter. A whisper of almond so achingly normal that it almost made me laugh. People clapped, cameras flashed. Mom stood right beside me as if she were the loving architect of this happiness. Ivy hooked her arm into mine for a photo, chin tilted, teeth gleaming. Smile, Lena, she murmured through her grin. It's your big moment. My big moment, I repeated in my head, obedient as ever. The flash went off, and I felt something collide with my ribs. Dad, bumping my arm as he angled to shake Mr. Keene's hand, one of his partners. My fork scraped the plate. Happy 18, kiddo, Dad said, eyes already sliding past me toward the men. We're very proud. He said, proud the way a stranger might say, interesting to end a conversation. I nodded and swallowed a second bite of cake. A tiny bitter aftertaste clung to the edges of sweet lemon. No, something else, something metallic, fleeting, like the air in a dentist's office. I chased it with punch. Everyone to the living room. Mom called out, clapping her hands. We have a few surprises for our birthday girl. A few guests whooped. Ivy squealed. I tightened my grip on the plate and followed the herd. Our living room looked like a showroom, stagey and spotless, cream-colored couch that no one was ever allowed to sit on. Glass coffee table that showed every fingerprint. Balloons bobbed at the ceiling. A banner read Happy 18, Lena. In gold foil, the kind of cheerful that felt expensive and hollow. Mom positioned me in the front like a prop and floated toward the TV. Everyone ready? She picked up the remote and wagged her eyebrows. I spent all week on this. Ivy swooped behind me and draped her arms over my shoulders. Chin nestled theatrically against my hair. You're going to die when you see this. Don't say die. Mom said lightly, not looking away from the TV. It's bad luck. A tremor slid through me. It wasn't the word. It was how she said it, sing-song, like a child teasing a cat. I told myself I was being dramatic. It's just a slideshow, I thought. A normal birthday thing. But the bitter taste of the last bite remained, and my tongue pawed at it, confused. The screen came to life. Lena, a journey. Oversized serif font. Dramatic orchestral music from some royalty-free website. The first picture, newborn me, red-faced and screaming in a pink blanket. Mom's caption popped up in curly letters. She started loud and never stopped. Laughter. My cheeks went hot. Okay, harmless. I could take a joke. Next, me at 4, hair hacked jagged because I tried to cut it myself. I remembered Mom shrieking, calling me gremlin for weeks. The caption read, When Scissors Met Stubbornness. A few cousins guffawed. One of Dad's partners whispered, Yikes, and my stomach pinched. I slid another forkful of cake into my mouth just to have something to do, and that aftertaste hit harder this time. Not lemon, not metallic like pennies. Something sharp. I reached for my drink again. The slideshow accelerated. Me at 7 wearing Ivy's ballet costume because our aunt brought the wrong bag to a recital. The caption, she wanted to shine, but the costume did all the work. Laughter. Me at 12, face blotchy, braces gleaming. Standing next to Ivy winning yet another trophy. Caption, support cast. Laughter, louder now. Isn't this fun? Ivy whispered. Her breath tickled my ear. Mom really captured you. Captured, I thought, like a bug in a jar. I pressed the plate to my stomach as if I could hold myself together by force. The music swelled. High school photos, me clutching books, me at the back of group shots, me in oversized sweaters. Me blurred while Ivy was perfectly in focus, always. The captions were daggers wrapped in bows. Our introvert explorer, under a photo where I was obviously crying behind a smile. Practicing resting sad face under a candid that wasn't candid at ALOD. Been sick that day and Mom insisted on pictures anyway. Clara, Aunt Denise said, chuckling, you're terrible. Oh, it's all in good fun, Mom replied, her voice dipped in honey. She knows we love her. My mouth felt too wet. Saliva pooled, insistent, as if my body didn't want to let anything down my throat. I stopped eating, fork poised like a white flag. Almost done, Mom cooed. Just a few more memories. A video started. I recognized the kitchen, the same counter behind Mom earlier, the same bright window. Me at 14, carrying a tray of cupcakes I'd made for Ivy's birthday. Mom filming voice buttery. Smile, Lena. Then the tray tilting, my foot catching on the rug, cupcakes exploding across the floor. Ivy shrieking with laughter. Mom zooming in on my face as I stammered apologies. The caption, she's trying. My jaw locked. Someone behind me said, oh, poor thing. But it was the kind of pity that rubs your hair the wrong way. The music cut. The TV went black. For a second, a thin, merciful silence. Then Mom turned to me, microphone in handwear. Did she even get a microphone? And said, and now, a few words from the woman of the hour. Applause pushed at my back. Ivy tugged me forward. The microphone landed in my palm, heavier than it looked. I could see my face reflected in the silver, flushed, glassy-eyed, trying so hard to be game. I glanced around the room. Dad had moved to the edges, half turned toward a conversation that had nothing to do with me. My mother beamed like a pageant coach. Ivy adjusted my hair like I was a doll. I said, my voice crackled in the speaker. Everyone hushed a sea of expectant faces. Thank you for coming. The, slideshow was something. Chuckles. My eyes found the cake plate on the coffee table. Half the slice remained, melting. The frosting looked luminous. The little metallic twang pinged my tongue again as if in memory. I am grateful, I continued, for, surviving my childhood because we survived it too. Mom interjected brightly, taking the mic back. Laughter crashed like breaking plates. My fingernails dug into my palms. We survived the difficult baby, the stubborn scissors, the cupcakes, she said. But look, 18 and thriving. Thriving, I echoed under my breath. My vision fuzzed at the edges. Was it the lights? The room felt warmer by a degree that didn't make sense. I glanced at the plate again and felt a small convulsion ripple across my tongue like a shiver inside my mouth. No, I told myself, it's just nerves. Just humiliation doing its favorite thing. Mom thrust the mic back at me. A toast. She commanded, to Lena. Glasses lifted. To Lena, too. Me, I said, hollow. I raised an empty hand because I didn't trust my grip. May I keep learning? How not to bleed in front of you? I didn't say. People sipped. The room broke apart into pockets of chatter. The party reinflated itself like a lung. Ivy drifted to my side. You okay? You look. I don't know, Moody. Don't be moody today. Thanks for the coaching, I muttered. That was brutal. She widened her eyes innocently. What was? The slideshow. Oh, come on. It was funny. Honestly, the one of you crying at the orchestra concert? I died. You picked the pictures, I said. It wasn't a question. She smirked without answering and floated away to hug Aunt Denise. I stood there trying to siphon oxygen out of the room. People approached me in clumps, offering congratulations wrapped in mild condescension. You know, said Mr. Keene's wife, tapping my arm, if you smiled more, you'd be very pretty. Gap years are popular these days, said someone else, without asking if I planned one. You've slimmed down since last holiday. A neighbor blurted. Must be the stress, huh? Then she laughed as if she hadn't just admitted she'd been tracking my body like a stock price. I felt the bitter note creep up my throat again and grabbed a glass of water. The first sip landed wrong too heavy, as if gravity had deepened in my esophagus. I coughed, a polite masked cough, and my chest tightened in response. A tiny alarm rang in some back room of my brain. What is that? I pressed fingers to my neck. My pulse skittered. Mom materialized at my elbow. Darling, she murmured, voice pitched for me alone. Try to look less grim. People will think you're ungrateful. Ungrateful. The words scraped out of me. Her smile didn't budge. I worked very hard. For what? I asked. To make me a joke? Don't be melodramatic. She lifted the water from my hand, sniffed it, handed it back. Her eyes cooled by a few degrees. Don't ruin this. Something in her tone pricked at my skin, a splinter I couldn't see. I watched her glide away to greet a new arrival, someone I didn't recognize. He was tall, mid-30s maybe, with a soft-looking beard and a suit that fit without trying. He handed Mom a bottle of wine and a tidy rectangular box wrapped in navy paper. Mom's mouth made a surprised "oh," like she hadn't expected him, but was thrilled nonetheless. They spoke for a second. He glanced at me just a flicker and something like concern dipped his eyebrows. I had no context for him. A client of Dad's. One of Ivy's teachers. Special people, Mom had said. My stomach flipped, Lena. Aunt Denise sang, weaving toward me with an entourage. Come, let us play a game. Ivy says you love trivia. I don't, I said, but she was already pulling me. They sat me in a chair of honor and formed a circle. Someone put a birthday tiara on my head, the kind with blunt metal teeth that stabbed my scalp. The questions started. Not real trivia embarrassing. How well do we know Lena prompts that turned mean fast? What's Lena's most iconic clumsy moment? Aunt Denise read from a cue card, cackling. Cupcakes. Ivy yelled, along with 3 other relatives. Know when she fell off the treadmill at my gym? A neighbor crowed, face bright with the pleasure of being remembered. I didn't fall, I said, heat rising. The belt stuck. What time does Lena usually cry? Ivy sang. Is that a time thing? Giggled a cousin. Evenings, another offered, as if guessing my sun sign. I forced a laugh that felt like it belonged to my ghost. That bitter taste roared back, and this time I didn't need to swallow anything to feel it. It just bloomed. My tongue tingled numb at the edges, and a line of cold sweat pasted itself along the back of my neck. Okay, I said, standing too fast. I need air. Don't be dramatic, Ivy said, grabbing my wrist. We're doing gifts next. Gifts. My voice sounded distant, underwater. Mom clapped from across the room. Yes, gifts. Everyone gathered Lena in the center. Her eyes scanned for me like radar. When she locked on, something pleased settled in her shoulders. It wasn't warmth. It wasn't maternal pride. It was satisfaction. Stop, I commanded my own imagination. Stop spinning stories about your mother. She's cruel, not monstrous. Still, as I moved back toward the center, the room seemed to tilt by a few degrees. The carpet pattern elongated, then snapped back. I blinked hard. I opened a sweater from Aunt Denise to coax you into color, and a planner from Dad's partner's wife's structure will save you. Ivy handed me a slender envelope with a flourish 2 tickets to a spa day, but scheduled for a weekend she already knew I had final exams. "Oh no," she said when I pointed it out, all pout. "I guess you'll have to give one to me and we'll go the next weekend. Mom can write a note." "Wonderful idea," Mom said, already writing in her head. Then the man I didn't know stepped forward with his navy-wrapped box. He smiled softly when I looked at him fully, not with pity. Not with condescension. His smile acknowledged something. Like, "I see you're having a hard time, and I'm not going to make it worse." He offered the gift with both hands. "For you," he said simply. His voice was warm, quiet. I glanced at Mom. Her smile tightened. "This is our neighbor's friend," she said, vague with intent. "He does some work with Henry. This is oh goodness. What is your name again?" "Eli," he said. "Elias Corbett." We haven't met. The name snagged something in Dad's vague corporate world. Maybe I'd heard it at the dinner table as noise. I took the box. The paper was thick. Inside, a small, leather-bound notebook, deep green with my initials pressed into the corner. My initials. Not Ivy's, not a generic dream big. Slogan. It startled me with its gentleness. "Thank you," I murmured, and something in my chest softened for the first time all day. "Remember this face?" a small voice said. "He saw you." Mom's hand lit on my shoulder, fingers cool. "Isn't he thoughtful?" she chimed. "Now everyone, dessert round to cake for all." "Maybe not for me," I said quickly, the words arriving before I knew I'd said them. My mouth felt wrong, my lips tingling like bees had walked across them. A thin ribbon of nausea tightened at my core. I had my slice. "Don't be silly," Mom scolded. "You barely ate. You need energy." "She said she's fine," Elias said, mild but firm. Mom's head tilted a fraction, like a dog hearing a whistle. "I'm her mother," she said, smiling. "I know what she needs." The room didn't hear the edge in that. The room heard. Attentive mother, picky daughter. I heard a warning. I tucked the notebook under my arm like a talisman. People queued for cake. The room ferried plates and forks. I stood still and focused on breathing. The air tasted like frosting and perfume and something else I couldn't name. A chemical thread woven under everything. My heart picked up a syncopated rhythm, fast, then normal, then too fast again. I pressed my palm against the underside of my ribs as if I could steady it manually. "Lena," Dad said, wandering back toward me with a half plate. "You really should thank your mother properly. She put a lot into this." "I did," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I will." He nodded, eyes already glassing over with the thought of a firm handshake he needed to give someone across the room. He scratched his jaw. "You okay? You look a little flushed." "I'm fine," I lied. "Can you?" I stopped. What would I even ask? "Can you notice me harder?" He had already pivoted away. The room tilted again, harder this time. I took a step to compensate and almost misjudged the floor. My legs felt both heavy and hollow, like furniture filled with sand. I closed my eyes for a second, just a second. "Hey," the voice was close. "Elias, you're pale," he said softly, and sweating. "I think I'm just embarrassed," I said, words slurring a hair, just enough that I noticed and hoped he didn't. "It's a lot." He studied me. Not invasive. Not performative. He took a slow breath, and I watched him make a decision. "Do you want to step outside?" He asked. "Fresh air. 2 minutes. I'll run interference." "Mom will." My tongue stumbled on the M. My throat tightened like fingers were closing around it. Panic flicked on. "I'll be right back. I promised the air." We didn't make it to the door. We made it to the hallway, to the table with the framed family photos. Us on a beach when I was 6. Ivy on a pony. Mom and Dad at some gala, tanned and glossy. My vision pixelated around the edges like the photos had been zoomed too far. I grabbed the table with one hand and the wall with the other. "Okay," Elias said, voice brisker now, controlled. "What are you feeling?" "Stupid," I said. My lips tingled like menthol had been smeared on them. "Numb, dizzy. My heart is, I couldn't find the right image. Like it's skipping hopscotch and also very tired." He nodded once. "When did it start?" "After cake." The words felt like coins dropping from a slot. I know, I know. I added quickly, shame flaring. It sounds ridiculous. It's just cake. Food reactions aren't ridiculous, he said. Do you have allergies? Medications. I shook my head. The motion sent a spray of black snow across my vision. No, no meds. I swallowed. My throat protested, a slow burn revealing itself under the skin, like a sunburn you don't notice until you shower. It started when, I don't know. After the slideshow, I laughed once, ugly. Poetic. He angled his body so he blocked the view from the living room. His hand hovered near my elbow, close enough to catch, not touching without permission. I'm going to get you water, he said, and we're going to sit. He steered me to the bench by the front door, the spot where we stacked shoes we pretended not to have. I sank. The leather squeaked under my thighs. He disappeared and returned with a glass. I tried to take it and fumbled. He steadied it with me. The water tasted like itself and like nothing, and somehow the nothing tasted like dread. I coughed again, deeper. My chest tightened with a slow, deliberate malice. Lena. Mom's voice sliced down the hallway. She materialized again, smiled too bright. What's this? Hiding? We're doing a toast to family. Her eyes dipped to my hand on the glass. You don't need water. It'll make you feel bloated. Come on, darling. I need a minute, I said. My voice sounded like a stranger wearing my clothes. Mom's eyes flicked to Elias, to the way his body made a small wall between me and the party. We don't know you, she said softly, still smiling. And yet here you are insinuating yourself. Clara, he said, matching her softness, she's not well. She's fine. The smile sharpened. She gets like this when she's the center of attention. Her gaze turned to me, maternal concern pasted in place. Don't ruin your own party. Aunt Denise called from the living room. Are we singing again or what? Laughter rippled. Music restarted, something bubbly, mercilessly upbeat. My hands tingled now, the numbness marching into my fingers. I flexed them like I could wring sensation back into them. Elias' face had flattened into calm lines, the kind of calm that comes from practiced focus. He crouched so our eyes were level. Tell me exactly what you ate and drank, he said. Cake, I said. 2 bites. I listed the punch, the water. I didn't eat the catered stuff yet. Any new perfumes? Products, he asked. I shook my head, and the slow burn panic rose another notch. The shape of it felt familiar, like the panic I'd swallowed for years, but this had teeth. It was happening to my body, not just in my head. The room heard music and voices and clinking glasses. I heard the clock inside me miscounting time. Mom stepped in, her hand landing on my shoulder with a little more weight this time. Stop making a spectacle, she hissed, smile still fixed for any passers-by. We have guests. I began, and then my throat closed, not completely, not like a movie, but enough that the next inhale scraped. My body tried to breathe around it, shallow, fast. My heart responded with a frantic tap dance that scared me more than anything. Elias stood, quick and controlled. Clara, he said calmly, I'm a physician. Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, then speed. Denial moving to reframe. And, she said, syrup thickening to molasses. Are you her physician? Because we don't need, she's having an acute reaction, he said. Still calm, but I heard urgency rung inside the calm like a bell. We need to call 911. The music in the living room swelled into a chorus. My mother's fingers tightened on me like talons. Absolutely not, she said, through her smile. You're overreacting. Lena is dramatic. She has always been dramatic. Always, I thought dimly. The word rang down a long hallway of years. Always too loud, too clingy, too much, too difficult, too sensitive, too hungry, too needy. Always dramatic. Meanwhile, my hands shook like small, polite earthquakes, and the air tasted thin as old frosting. I caught sight of the cake on the dining table beyond Mom. Frosted white, roses blushing at the edges, candles melted into small wax ghosts. A slice was missing where mine had been cut. Beside it, neatly arranged on a little dish, were small silver dragées, those edible beads Mom used sparingly because they cost more than they're worth. I'd always liked the crunch. I didn't remember them on my slice. But I had been too nervous to notice details. Silvery, metallic. The word rang. And with it, the aftertaste sharpened into meaning I couldn't yet hold. Elias' phone was already in his hand. "I'm calling," he said. "Your daughter's oxygen levels could be compromised. If it's anaphylaxis or a toxin." "Toxin," Mom repeated, the smile freezing into something that couldn't move. "In my house." My body chose that moment to let loose a tremor. My legs went loose and then rigid, a trembling that wasn't just fear, it was something chemical claiming ground. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste iron. I tasted it. And it didn't match what had been haunting my tongue all night. The two metals collided, wrong on wrong. "Lena," Dad's voice called from the archway. He peered in, more annoyed than alarmed. "What's going on?" "People are asking for the birthday girl." "She's fine," Mom said brightly, stepping half into his line of sight. "She's just being Dad." I managed, the words scraping my throat raw. "I can't breathe." The tenor of the hall changed, air molecules rearranging around the sentence. Dad blinked as if someone had snapped fingers in front of his face. And he finally saw me, not the story of me, not the performance he preferred, but me on a bench with a stranger crouched at my knees and my mother's hand like a clamp on my shoulder, pale and blinking like a fish on dry land. "Jesus," he said, voice dropping. "Clara, she's fine," Mom repeated, a mantra melting at the edges. Elias had the phone to his ear. "Yes, 18-year-old female, acute onset of oral paresthesia, dizziness, dyspnea, tachycardia, post-ingestion, conscious and oriented, deteriorating. Address," he rattled it off. "No known allergies told to me." He met my eyes, steady. "Help is on the way." Laughter burst from the living room, oblivious, like a laugh track from a show I didn't want to watch anymore. My head felt light, the kind of light that precedes black. I clutched the little green notebook against my ribs like it might anchor me to the earth. Mom's fingers loosened. For a moment, fear cracked her performance and something naked flashed through panic. Yes, but also fury, not at danger, at interruption, at a narrative derailed. "Come on," she said to herself. More than to anyone. She looked toward the cake, toward the dining room, toward the party that was supposed to glitter. She drew breath and slipped the mask back on. Turning half toward the living room with a fresh smile, calling everyone, "A small hiccuplina needs a little air." Behind her, the cake sat as innocent as winter. Roses, ruffles, a slice missing. Somewhere within the sugar, a small, quiet war had lit a match inside me. Somewhere in the room, eyes were finally watching me, not as a joke, but as a person whose body was failing in real time. And their attention felt like a rumor that had taken too long to reach the right ears. Elias crouched again, voice low and focused, coaching me to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. "You're doing great," he said. "You're here with me. Keep looking at me." I obeyed because I needed a command that wasn't cruel. My lungs caught and released, like fish gulping surface air. I stared at his face until it steadied into something I could hold. Brown eyes with gold at the edges. A small scar near his jaw, the clean. Particular concern of a person doing their job not for praise but for the person in front of them. "Good," he said. Again, the house swam around us, perfume, laughter, forks on plates, the low thump of music. Right. My mother's voice controlling perception like a conductor controlling tempo. The hallway photos watched me, mute witnesses to all the smaller deaths I'd performed in this house. For the first time, though, someone else was calling a number louder than hers. Sirens were just a word in my head then, not a sound yet, but the word itself was a relief. I pressed my palm into the green notebook. The leather was cool and real, a small door into a world where I wrote the captions. The edges of my vision narrowed, tunneled, then widened again. like my body couldn't decide whether to let me go. I kept breathing with Elias. Dad stood uncertainly at the archway, one foot in business and one foot in fatherhood, and for once he didn't move either foot. Mom pivoted between the rooms, keeping one face for them and one for us. "Lena, sweetheart," she said, lowering to my eye level with effort, smile trembling. "You're okay. You're fine." I looked at her and felt something new push up through the floor of me, something that wasn't only fear or humiliation. It was anger, yes, but sharper anger that had learned the shape of itself, anger with a spine. I held it there, small and nascent, but undeniable. While a tiny metallic ghost danced on my tongue and the sirens in my head grew closer to an actual sound. "Am I?" I asked her, voice a rasp. "Am I fine, Mom?" Her eyes flicked, a swallow of something she didn't want anyone to see. Then the mandate returned. "Of course." Elias' hand hovered again, steady, close enough to catch. "Keep breathing," he murmured. "You're not alone." I wasn't. Not anymore. Not today. And as the room vibrated with the thunder of laughter and the careful clinking of plates around the cake in the other room, as my heartbeat made its own percussion under my skin, as my mother worked the room like a magician, trying to guide the audience's eyes away from the trapdoor, I understood that something irreversible had already been set in motion. The party had performed its humiliation. The cake had carried its message. But a new scene had begun, one where the camera turned and, at last, refused to cut away. I don't know how long I sat on that leather bench, Elias steadying me with his calm voice while the party thundered on as though nothing were wrong. Time bent and folded. 1 minute my body felt like lead, the next like paper, threatening to tear with the slightest pull. The bitter, metallic taste clung to my tongue like it had been welded there. Then, finally, mercifully, I heard it. The faint wail of sirens cutting through the muffled laughter and music. The sound grew louder, closer, until red and blue lights pulsed through the frosted glass by the door. Mom straightened, her hand flying to her pearls. "Good heavens!" she gasped, turning back to the living room. "Everyone stay commits, nothing serious." But Elias ignored her and opened the door before she could stop him. 2 EMTs hurried in, their faces snapping instantly to clinical attention when they saw me. Pale, trembling, clutching the green notebook like a lifeline. "What happened?" one asked, kneeling in front of me. "She ate cake, developed oral numbness, dizziness, difficulty breathing," Elias reported quickly. "No known allergies, according to her. Symptoms consistent with acute poisoning or severe allergic reaction." "Poisoning," the other EMT echoed. Sharp. The words sliced through the air like glass shattering. The room behind us fell into whispers. Mom's face tightened. "That's absurd. She's always been melodramatic." "Surely it's just, ma'am, please step back." The EMT cut her off. Ivy poked her head around the corner, her green eyes wide. "Poison Whitar? You saying she's been poisoned?" Her words ignited the room. Gasps, murmurs, a couple of nervous laughs. Suddenly, all the guests were whispering, the party energy transforming from celebration to spectacle. "I told you she was too pale." Aunt Denise hissed to someone behind her. "I thought it was nerves," a neighbor muttered. The EMT shined a light into my eyes. Pupils reactive. Pulse fast, thready. "We need to get her to the hospital immediately." "No, that's not necessary, Mom," insisted, stepping forward, her voice high and sharp. "She's fine. She'll be fine." The EMT ignored her and began fitting me with an oxygen mask. The cool flow of air filled my lungs, making me dizzy but grateful. "Ma'am," Elias said suddenly, his tone cool but edged with steel, "was there anything unusual in that cake?" All eyes swiveled to my mother. Her smile wavered just for a second before reforming. "Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. I baked it myself. Flour, sugar, eggs, the usual." "Did you add nuts, alcohol? Any decorative metallic dragées?" Elias pressed. I don't recall," she stammered. "You don't recall?" Dad's voice cut in, sharp and incredulous. He had been standing in the archway, but now he moved forward, finally engaged. "Clara, what the hell does that mean? I mean..." Mom's eyes darted around, searching for support. but no one rushed to her side. It's possible I tried something new. A different extract, maybe? A friend gave me a recipe. I don't remember every detail. My head lolled against the bench, but I forced my eyes open, staring at her. A friend gave me a recipe. That was the kind of flimsy excuse she used when she didn't want to admit anything. The EMT spoke briskly. We'll need to bring a sample of the cake with us for testing. Could someone box it up? That's when Ivy gasped. Wait, Mom, I saw you. You used that little brown bottle when you were finishing the cake earlier, didn't you? The room hushed. Every head swiveled toward Ivy. What bottle? The EMT asked immediately. Ivy faltered, glancing at Mom. It looked like vanilla extract, but the label was old, worn off. I remember asking what it was, and Mom said, "Don't worry about it, it'll make the flavor stronger." Gasps rippled. Aunt Denise clapped her hand over her mouth. Elias' eyes hardened. What was in that bottle, Clara? Mom's mask cracked, just for a heartbeat. I saw a flicker of fear, the tightening of her jaw, the way her fingers curled into fists at her sides. That's absurd, she snapped. It was nothing. Just flavoring. Flavoring that makes your daughter collapse. Dad barked, his face red. Jesus Christ, Clara. The EMTs exchanged a look. One of them muttered into his radio. Ivy stepped closer, voice trembling now. Mom, what did you do? Her question hung in the air like a blade. For years, I'd lived under my mother's sharp tongue, her constant belittling, the way she favored Ivy and dismissed me. But I had never truly believed she wanted to harm me, embarrass me, undermine me, make me small es. But not this. Yet as I stared at her now, something shifted. The room seemed to recognize it too. The way every eye pinned to her, every whisper stopped. Mom straightened her spine, her voice ringing out with false indignation. Are you all really suggesting that I would poison my own child? My flesh and blood. The silence that followed was damning. You made that cake, Dad said slowly, his voice heavy with realization. No one else touched it. It was an accident. She snapped, then clamped her mouth shut, realizing too late what she had just admitted. The room erupted. Gasps, cries. Ivy staggered back, her hands over her mouth. Accident. Elias' voice was ice. That's not what you said a moment ago. Which is it, Clara? I locked eyes with her through the haze of dizziness. For once, I didn't look away. My voice cracked through the oxygen mask, weak but sharp. You wanted me gone, didn't you? Her lips parted, but no sound came out. And in that silence, the truth became undeniable, not just for me, but for everyone in that room. My mother had poisoned me. The EMTs moved quickly then, lifting me onto a stretcher. Guests parted like the Red Sea, their faces pale and horrified. Some clutched their children tighter. Others whispered furiously, their eyes darting between me and Mom as though piecing together years of suspicion. Ivy's sobs broke through the noise. Dad just stood frozen, staring at Clara like he had never really seen her before. And Mom? She stood alone, her carefully built world crumbling around her. Her mask slipping further with every horrified stare directed her way. As they wheeled me out into the night, the sirens wailing closer now, I realized this wasn't just my birthday anymore. It was the day every buried truth clawed its way to the surface. And it was only the beginning. They say clarity comes after chaos, like the air after a thunderstorm. But for me, clarity came while strapped to a stretcher. Sirens screaming, the bitter taste of betrayal still burning my tongue. At the hospital, everything blurred bright lights, brisk voices, needles piercing my skin. They ran tests, flushed my system, hooked me up to monitors that beeped steadily like proof I was still here. My chest burned, my throat itched, and waves of nausea kept rolling through me. But the worst pain wasn't physical. It was the knowledge that my own mother had tried to destroy me. When I finally stabilized, they transferred me to a private room. Elias stayed, somehow convincing the staff he had authority. Dad lingered near the window, looking a decade older, his face pale and grim. Ivy sat slumped in a chair, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. And Mom, she wasn't there. Not anymore. Where's Mom? I croaked through dry lips. Dad didn't answer right away. His jaw clenched, the vein in his temple throbbing. Finally, he said, she's being questioned. His voice was low, bitter. The police wanted a statement. My stomach dropped. So they know. They know enough. His gaze flicked toward me, but he couldn't hold it long. The cake tested positive for toxic levels of bitter almond cyanide. The word ripped through me like ice water. Cyanide. The bitter, metallic taste. My body trembled. Ivy let out a choked sob. She told me it was almond extract. She said it would make the cake taste richer. She lied, Elias said flatly. That wasn't almond extract. It was poison. He leaned toward me, his voice gentler. You're lucky you only ate a small amount. If you'd had more, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. I closed my eyes. My birthday, my 18th birthday, could have been my funeral. Dad rubbed his forehead. All these years. I thought she was just critical, cruel, maybe. But this, his voice cracked, and it startled me. My father never cracked. She's crossed into something else. Something unforgivable. For the first time in my life, I saw regret in his eyes. Genuine regret. I should have stopped it years ago, he whispered. The way she treated you, the favoritism, the ridicule. I let it slide because it was easier than confronting her. I thought you were strong enough to handle it. His voice broke again. But this, I failed you, Lena. Tears pricked at my eyes. My father, the man who had always been silent, was finally admitting the truth. It was both comforting and devastating. You didn't just fail me, I said hoarsely. You enabled her. He flinched like I'd slapped him. And maybe I had with words he deserved. I didn't know, Ivy blurted suddenly, her voice shrill. She scooted closer to me, grabbing my hand. I swear I didn't know she would. That she would go that far. I stared at her. My perfect sister, the golden child, sobbing like a child who'd just seen her toy break. Ivy, I whispered. You always laughed when she mocked me. You joined in. You knew how much it hurt me. Her lip trembled. I thought it was normal. I thought that was just how Mom showed love. She adored me when I was perfect, and she tore you down when you weren't. I thought that's just how families worked. Families don't try to poison each other, Elias said sharply. Ivy buried her face in her hands. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm sorry. For once, her tears didn't feel like an act. They felt real. The door opened then, and all heads turned. Mom entered, flanked by 2 police officers. Her wrists were cuffed, her eyes blazing but wet. She still wore her party dress, the pearls around her neck gleaming under the fluorescent light. Lena, she said, her voice breaking. Sweetheart. My blood ran cold. Don't call me that. Her face twisted. It wasn't supposed to go like this. I didn't mean to. My voice rose raw. You put poison in my cake. I just wanted you to. She stopped herself, swallowing hard. Her gaze darted toward Dad, toward Ivy, then back to me. You don't understand. You've always been difficult, always competing, always making everything harder. I just wanted peace in this family. Peace, I spat. By killing me. She flinched, but didn't deny it. The officers shifted, uncomfortable but firm. Ma'am, it's time to go. She turned toward them, desperate now. Please, she's my daughter. Let me explain. You don't get to explain, I said, my voice trembling but steady. Not anymore. You don't get to twist things. You don't get to make me the villain in my own story. You tried to take my life. Her eyes filled with tears. For once, they weren't crocodile tears meant for show. They were real, raw, panicked. But it was too late. Take her away, Dad said hoarsely, his eyes hard. I never want to see her again. The officers nodded and began to lead her out. She struggled, calling my name, but I turned my face away. For the first time, I wasn't her captive audience. News spread fast. By the next day, headlines blared. Mother accused of poisoning daughter's birthday cake. Neighbors whispered. Dad's business partners distanced themselves appalled. Relatives flooded with messages of shock, guilt, shame that they hadn't seen the signs sooner. But the truth was out now. For once, everyone saw Clara for who she really was. At the arraignment, she tried to play the role of the misunderstood mother. She wept, claimed it was a mistake, claimed she only wanted to teach me a lesson. But the evidence was undeniable. Cyanide in the bottle, traces in the cake, intent to clear to ignore. She was denied bail. I watched the proceedings from my hospital bed, relief washing over me. For years, she had humiliated me behind closed doors, made me feel small and unworthy. But now her cruelty was exposed in the harshest light possible for the whole world to see, and she couldn't escape it. When I was finally discharged, I returned home not to live, but to gather my things. Dad insisted I'd take the master bedroom if I wanted, swearing he'd change everything, but I shook my head. That house was tainted, every corner haunted by her voice. Instead, I packed my bags, every item folded with trembling but determined hands. Ivy hovered, offering to help, crying as she apologized again. Dad promised to cover my tuition to make amends. But I didn't need grand gestures. What I needed was freedom. Before I left, I stood in the living room, the same place where the slideshow of my humiliation had played. The balloons had deflated, the banner hung limply, remnants of a party that ended in disgrace. I faced the empty room and whispered, "You don't own me anymore." For the first time, I believed it. Justice wasn't just the police taking her away. Justice was me standing tall, no longer defined by her cruelty. Justice was Dad finally seeing the truth, Ivy finally admitting her part, and the whole family realizing that I had survived not just one night of poison, but 18 years of it. Mom lost her freedom. She lost her mask. She lost control, and I gained mine. The first morning after leaving that house, I woke up in a small studio apartment downtown. The walls were bare, the mattress was on the floor, and the air smelled faintly of fresh paint and cardboard boxes. But for the first time in my life, I opened my eyes and didn't feel dread clawing at my chest. There was no sharp voice waiting downstairs to criticize my clothes. No icy silence from Dad. No forced laughter at Ivy's jokes. Just silence. A silence that belonged to me. I stood at the window, looking out at the city, waking up cars humming. People rushing with coffee cups, the sun spilling between buildings. I pressed my hand against the glass and whispered, "I made it." Because I had. Against every odd, against my own mother's cruelty and malice, I was still here, alive. Recovery wasn't quick. Physically, my body healed, though I carried fatigue and a slight tremor in my hands for weeks. Mentally, though, that was harder. I had to unlearn the voice in my head that whispered, "You're difficult. You're unlovable. You deserved it." I had to remind myself that I wasn't the problem she was. Clara, my mother. The woman who birthed me and then spent years tearing me down until finally she tried to erase me altogether. Therapy helped. So did Elias. He checked in often, sometimes dropping by with coffee or a new notebook. He never treated me like a victim. He treated me like a survivor, like someone strong enough to tell her story. Dad tried to. He called every day, sometimes twice, fumbling through apologies, updates about the trial, promises to do better. Ivy visited often, her guilt heavy but genuine. "You're stronger than me," she admitted one night, sitting cross-legged on my floor as we ate takeout. "Mom shaped me into what she wanted. Perfect, obedient, shallow. But you never let her completely break you. That's why she hated you." Her words hit me like a wave. For years, I thought my mother despised me because I was weak. But maybe it was the opposite. Maybe she saw the strength she couldn't control. The day I testified in court, I walked in, trembling but resolute. Mom sat at the defense table in a pale suit, her hair neatly styled, her face painted with innocence. But when her eyes met mine, they flickered fear, desperation, rage. I told the jury everything. Not just about the cake, but about the years of ridicule, the cruel jokes, the favoritism, the endless humiliation. My voice shook, But I didn't stop. This wasn't an accident, I said clearly. It was the end result of years of resentment. She wanted me gone. But I survived. And I won't be silent anymore. The courtroom was silent when I finished. For the first time, I wasn't the butt of a cruel joke. I was the one telling the story. The verdict came days later, guilty on multiple counts, including attempted murder. My mother, the woman who once orchestrated every detail of my life, was sentenced to prison. Her reign of cruelty was over. People often ask if I forgave her. The truth: no, some things are too sharp, too deliberate, too dangerous to forgive. But I did let go of her power over me. I stopped carrying her voice inside me. I stopped letting her define me. I forgave myself instead for believing her lies for so long, for staying quiet, for shrinking to fit her shadow. And that forgiveness was enough. On my 18th birthday, I thought I would step into adulthood quietly, maybe with cake and a wish. Instead, I was forced to confront the ugliest truth of my life. But in surviving it, I gained something priceless: clarity. I learned that family isn't always safe. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you most. But I also learned that survival is its own form of justice. That speaking the truth can strip even the most powerful manipulator of their mask. Most of all, I learned that I am stronger than I ever believed. Now, every year when my birthday comes, I buy myself a small cake. I light a single candle, close my eyes, and make a wish. Not for escape anymore, but for courage, for love, for the strength to keep building a life that's mine. Sometimes Dad joins me, awkward but earnest. Sometimes Ivy comes, her laughter softer now, her eyes no longer blind. Sometimes Elias stops by, reminding me that strangers can become saviors. But always, no matter who's there, I remember that moment when the world saw my mother for who she was. And I remember how I chose, finally, to see myself for who I am. Not the difficult child, not the forgotten sister, not the joke. I am Lena. I am a survivor. And I will never let anyone write my story for me again. And that was the story of how my own mother tried to end my life with a poisoned birthday cake. But fate and an unexpected guest saved me. If this story gripped you, don't leave just yet. Hit that like button if you believe justice was finally served. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss the next tale of family secrets, betrayal, and revenge. And share this video with someone who loves a story where truth triumphs over lies.